Okay, let's get on with the program. This is what the energy side of the Nigerian market looked like on Thursday after a roaring week. That space slowed down yesterday. This is what it looks like in terms of the big seven. That's always the big majors, and we talk about them every day here on the program. The shares of Forte Oil, Oando, Mobil, and Total declined. Now let's get started from corn oil. Unchanged, 34.11. Forte Oil, 128.78, since back in its triple digit psychological level. But look at the volume on a single day that stock loses about 0.25%, 1.5 million shares. For a company whose shares are widely and strongly held, that's quite a significant one for single traded. Mobil, 284.05, off track by 5%. The news is likely overdone as far as the exit of ExxonMobil from Mobil Nigeria PLC, I beg your pardon. That's the downstream side of the Mobil mega business in Nigeria. That's the part listed on the stock exchange. That's the 60% that's been picked up by another indigenous oil company. So the news, according to some analysts, are overdone, but still some reactions there as far as Mobil Nigeria PLC is concerned. MI is 45.51. That's where it finished off on Thursday. Oando, negative by 4.67%. Oando was one of the 6 oil majors that the Ministry of Petroleum Resources yesterday signed the JV cash calls exit with others, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Ajip, and Shell. Okay, so let's move on. We'll get to that story. But Seplat, of course, you had Omotola Bimbola earlier on. Seplat, the only exploration and production company listed on our market, 410, up by 2.5%, 170,580 units in that sector, because oil prices decided to come back this morning. The Brent was doing around $50 a barrel, shaving off the lukewarm, or what they call a bit of a negative sentiment yesterday when the U.S. Federal Reserve decided to raise rates 0.25%. So all stocks are making a comeback, and Seplat, listed on the stock exchange in Lagos and London, benefited from that global rally. Total finished 277.13 on the board, off track 4.40%. So we saw a slowdown of about 1% in that sector yesterday if you add other small players into the basket of the oil and gas index of the NSE. Year to date, 41.41%. Price to earnings, you can see that 51.0, and dividend yield shaving off from 2.2 high in the past week to 1.8%. But the big story, however, was the signing yesterday of an agreement between Nigeria's Petroleum Ministry, led in the main by the Deputy Minister of Petroleum Resources, Dr. Emeka Chiko, and the officials of 6 oil companies. The agreement will help Nigeria get out of the, well, a little bit of a naughty yearly joint ventures, cash calls, in which Nigeria pays part of the operational costs of joint venture crude oil production. That's always come every year. Now, Nigeria had, in the last few years, ramped up about $10 billion that were unpaid to these oil companies. After some arrangement, we came down to about $6 billion US. Now we have to pay this $6 billion over the next 5 years, not in cash, mind you, but we'll pay it back by the oil companies producing the oil and taking part of our share to offset that arrears that Nigeria is owing. But Nigeria will no longer put a dime on the table anytime oil production is being done. So there's a new arrangement that the government or Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources says it will save Nigeria some money, put $2 billion into the government coffers in the next 12 months, and between now and the year 2020, that figure could go as high as $14 billion US dollars. Take a look at some of these images we have for you from and statements from Dr. Kachiko, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mr. Mekanti, and some of the others who were there yesterday. It's an interesting video you don't want to miss, this historic moment. We'll give that to you for a couple of minutes.
Today, we are going to witness the signing of the exit cash call, which essentially comprises of the three components: process for settling the pre-2016 cash call arrears, process for sustaining the cash call payment forward from 2017 on, and also agreement on settling whatever performance, outstanding overperformance in 2016. The determination, of course, of the Federal Executive Council to see this happen and the approval has paved the way for this to all happen.
This is a landmark milestone for industry and a positive step change, and we want to thank you for your strong leadership. The JV Arrears Repayment Agreement provides a clear line of sight on the recovery of long-standing arrears and provides a more streamlined process for sustainable partner funding in the future. Resolving these two key issues for the joint ventures will no doubt increase investor confidence and will pave the way to increased investment in the future. We have a number of oil and gas projects that we are dusting off the shelves that were on hold just because we needed to resolve the base business, funding of the base OPEX and base capital part of the business. And I know that we're all working hard to bring those projects forward, and we believe those projects will help to stabilize production in the joint ventures and increase production over time. And again, I just want to strongly emphasize that the repayment of the arrears and the sustainable funding model is the key enabler to additional investments in the future. So I know we're very excited, as well as our colleagues at NNPC. And I think as we move forward, as we've worked so well together, it's been a lot of work over the last 3 or 4 months to work through these term sheets and agreements. I know with the hard work and working together to implement these agreements effectively is equally important, and I'm confident, and I know my colleagues are confident, that we will continue to work extremely well together to make sure we implement the agreements as intended. So, Honorable Minister of State, NNPC GMD, I do again want to thank you for your leadership, your collaboration. I think this milestone shows that if we focus and we work together, there is really no issue that we can't tackle together to come up with a solution that will be good for all stakeholders involved. So thank you very much.
You said that you love the cash call so much you can't let it go. I thought we'll be rejoicing today, like Baru said. But I'm pleased to be here. I'm pleased to have contributed to this. It was a very collaborative work. Certainly a lot of man hours were burned after the initial conception in terms of getting here. Those were largely man hours burned by members of the NNPC management. Of particular significance, I don't know if he's here today, Dr. Bello, the head of the upstream group. And I think the Razak, who is not here, I think he's out to London or something. And then of course the head of planning, the GM for planning, our good fellows that stand up and take a bow. The man next to you is wearing a nice cap too. quite a lot of initial scoping with me. Quite a lot of people worked on this, and of course, the head of NAFIMS, who had to gather the initial data on which we worked. But over and above them all, below them, there was a huge team that was doing a lot of synthesizing of the data analysis and coming up with concepts and all that, and created initial guidelines that were sent out to the industry. And of course, thankfully, when Dr. Baru also joined, he took the baton to the finish line. And Makanta, congratulations on an excellent performance. This for me is very significant. I think if we continue to focus on the key things that make this industry work, and that haven't been addressed for years, we'll get the industry to a point where we can compete with our compatriots all over the world. We've dealt with the downstream. This is probably the most important item in the upstream. And then as obviously we begin to go into the policy measures and infrastructural development and the rest. And there's still a lot of work to be done, obviously. We need to get this, after the signing ceremony, we need to set up the governance processes that the government approved. And that's a lot of work again on Makanta and his team. But I think, like Clay said, the collaborative effort that has gone into this between the OPTS members, NNPC management, and to a very limited extent going forward now, the ministry is going to take us past, get to a point where we can look back and say, why did we survive all these years? I challenge the oil companies now to put their money where their mouth is. I was told that once this is done, investments will begin to rush into the country and look into all the projects that we have abandoned or put aside, coming back on the table. And we'll continue to remain collaborative enough to support you and making sure that we reap the very best results in our oil industry.
Nigeria's Deputy Minister for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ebere Kachiko, bringing up the rear in that conversation. Of course, a lot of back slapping there and saying, well done, folks. This has been done. Don't forget that a deal that was signed yesterday was previously presented to the National Assembly. The junior Petroleum Minister briefed the National Assembly and later took it to the Federal Executive Council where it was approved. Of course, that also has a signature of President Buhari on it, trying to get Nigeria to realign the NNPC just exactly the way the NLNG was realigned, to make sure Nigeria do not pay cash calls on any oil production deal and get it along with the gas business and just going to be a profit sharing, you can pay a dividend and things move on. As you heard there, this will bring a new template for Nigeria's oil earnings. Don't forget, this new agreement, however, will ensure that Nigeria gets its first charge, statutory oil and gas royalties and taxes to the Nigerian government by all parties in the joint venture. So this deal means that Nigeria will still remain the dominant partner in the business, will get first charge of taxes and royalties that accrues to the government. And that, as you heard, will be about $2 billion over the next 12 months. And that figure could go as high as $14 billion in 2020. That's according to about 5-page press statement released late yesterday afternoon from the Petroleum Resources Ministry. That's one big story. Now get back to the economy and markets. Quite a lot to chew in the month of December. According to analysts at FSDH Merchant Bank, they said they're waiting for some positive pronouncements from the government in December to move the equities market forward. That perhaps will be happening in 2017. Meantime, what are the expectations as far as this positive pronouncements was concerned? Is it the budget, or is it the much-awaited national economic recovery plan that the president, that was said that the president will unveil in December? We haven't heard that specifically yet, but is it embedded in the budget? How do you pull this together to make some informed investment decisions as we close 2015? Stick around. Akinwumi is joining us from FSDH Merchant Bank live here in the studios. We'll be back in 2.